Good morning. It's Sunday, January 22nd. And you know I speak about many problems in this country, and some are more serious than others. But this problem that I want to talk about today is a serious problem, but it doesn't get the news that it should. But then there are so many other things that have to be talked about in the news, it's hard to figure out when to present this particular problem. And this particular problem deals with housing. We have so many people on the street living homeless. I don't know, the count is somewhere around 1 million people. It might be more because they don't register necessarily as a homeless person, so they're out there on the street. And one of the major problems is that we don't have enough affordable housing in this country. Now, I lived in middle-income housing project for 10 years, and that was not bad. Our housing project was in the northeast part of the Bronx, and it was a very nice project, and we had a diverse population, not as diverse as many populations, but then housing projects in the city tended to be reflections of the neighborhood, right? So in any event, we were in a diverse neighborhood. But I don't want to talk about neighborhoods. I want to talk about the cost of housing. The cost to own a home in the United States is not very reasonable. In fact, it's downright unaffordable. We have many, many children on Long Island running away from Long Island because they can't afford the housing. And then, of course, if you go to the city, if you don't have a couple of roommates, you're in big trouble because it's not unusual to pay between $3,000 and $4,000 a month rent. But on the horizon, there is something that might happen that could relieve some of the stress. But I don't know how long it's going to take. And what I'm talking about is 3D housing. The ability to generate a house using a computer and a gigantic construction device. Now, I know this sounds funny talking about building houses as part of 3D printing, but that's what it is. The process involves using layered concrete in place of wood and drywall. So essentially think about making lasagna, where you lay out a layer of noodles and then maybe put a layer of meat in, and then another layer of noodles, and then another layer of cheese perhaps, and then a layer of something else, and eventually you get something that is nice and thick. So think about doing that with layers of concrete, right? And now this process would affect the construction business, obviously, because you won't have carpenters and painters and electricians and plumbers all working on these houses at the same time. You'll need some of that, but you won't need it to the extent that you need it now. And this will make housing much more affordable. And it could even help to end homelessness. Now, if these houses work twice as good as your current house and build them in half the time and half the price, that is a home run, right? Given the fact that houses cost $500,000. Now, I don't know how tall these things can be. I would assume they'll be 1 or 2 stories. We're not talking about building apartment buildings, although who knows? Who knows what they're liable to come up with? The engineer who started this movement, Baruch Shovish, said, "I'm very glad I started this kind of movement, but I really don't know how it's going to progress. Because there will be problems along the way. There will be many who look at this as interfering with the likelihood of making a living for many in the construction business. And I don't know if that's 100% true. I think there will be some, like perhaps the people who work on the structure and put the wood in place and carpenters and things like that. But there may be other things that they can do, and this might not have a great impact on the current employees in the house building industry. But look, we need progress. And we need to get homeless people off the street. And we need to have places for young people to live at a reasonable cost. So like every other possible new movement, there are challenges. And there are challenges good and challenges bad. And this has to be worked out over time. And the only way we're really going to come to grips with these challenges and solve them is by actually going ahead and producing these homes. And I don't know whether this is going to be a monumental movement where we will have homes produced all over the country by 3D printing equipment, or whether it will be limited to certain areas. Because I am sure there will be neighborhoods where there is space to build these homes, but the homes in those neighborhoods currently go for X or Y, and this could affect the cost of housing in that neighborhood, and that would not be good to the people who live there in their vision. If they have a $500,000 home or $750,000 home, and somebody could come into that neighborhood and start building things that cost $300,000, what is that going to do? It's not going to be pretty, I can tell you that. Because if people buy a home for X dollars, they expect that house to appreciate. Now, it's quite possible, you have a 3D house and you buy it, and in a couple of years it too will appreciate. But if you start building those houses in neighborhoods where there are expensive homes, you're going to have a lot of pushback. And so I don't know, you got to find enough space, you got to find people who are willing to have that take place in their neighborhood. And there are many other obstacles. But one of the major incentives in this project is to get people off the street, get the homeless living someplace. Maybe this could even build shelters for the homeless. That wouldn't be a bad idea. So I think that this is something that we have to watch carefully. The 3D printing of homes, I think, is on the verge of breaking into something wonderful. But who knows how it's going to go? Because there will be obstacles that they have to overcome, as I said before. Unions that are protecting their workers, the workers themselves that have to protect it. So I don't know. I don't know where this is going to go, but we should keep an eye on it. We should watch carefully how a new industry that could benefit many is allowed to take place in this country. Think about the things that have happened over the years. Electricity, invention of the light bulb, and lots of things like that. What did the candle makers think when the light bulb was invented? So we're on the verge of something like that, perhaps. So I leave you with that this morning. Have a great day.